Hello, welcome back to the Next Wave podcast. I'm Carelia, forgot to introduce myself. I'm here with my co-host.
I'm Andre, and today we have Mya Gallegos here to talk about her CAST project.
So the CAST project is a part of the IB program at Nogales High School. So Mia, first of all, can you explain a little bit about what the project is and how you came to your specific studies through it?
So the CAST project is a part of, you have to complete the CAST project at Nogales High School to earn your IB diploma, which is what I'm striving for. And it stands for creativity, activity, and service. So throughout your 2 years in IB, you complete one task each month, which is either something creative that you did, something that gave back to the community, or an activity. I know someone that did hiking for their activity, so that was fun for them. But after you complete those set of activities, you are left with your final activity, which we call your CAST project. And it's a project that you have to work on for 2 to 3 weeks. And I decided you have to give back to the community in this project. And I decided to give back to the community by raising awareness for teen violence. Yeah.
Right, so what was the kind of reason or driving force for you to go into this particular course of study? Like, what about teen violence spoke to you?
To start off, we are currently February is Teen Violence Awareness Month. And what really gave me, I don't want to say interest, but what inspired me was the fact that I kept seeing, in a way, romanticization of teen violence.
Right. So do you want to talk a little bit more about like where you're seeing that, maybe like the effects that social media has on how popular violence in intimate partner relationships for teenagers is?
I think we see it a lot in songs and in your TV shows. For example, Maddie from Euphoria, she was being abused by Nate Jacobs, and she kind of covered for him. But a lot of people skipped past that entire point in the plot because they're like, Nate Jacobs is very attractive, Maddie's very attractive, they're meant to be. They kind of have this idea. So, yeah.
Right. And so, like, kind of what things have you been doing to give back or to raise awareness for your project? Like, what activities?
Okay. So, for my CAST activities or this CAST project?
For this specific CAST project.
I've been doing a lot of research. I've been watching TED Talks specifically on teen violence, why people stay. I spoke to my aunt, who is a certified therapist. She has been for 18 years, and we always have those kind of uncomfortable conversations. So that's what I'm doing.
So like from this research and like from talking to your aunt or these TED Talks, what stood out to you the most as like the most like profound thing you researched?
I think it was the fact that not a lot of people see men as being, in a way, capable of suffering abuse, whether it's teen abuse or they're adults. That was very shocking to me.
And what would you say, like, is like a huge driving factor for why these things happen? Like, what did you find as to like why? Why is this happening?
I think you do know about the nature and nurture. So
Yeah.
it's kind of that, I think it can be both. I think that the environment you grew up in, maybe you saw how one parent treated the other parent and you thought that was normal, and then you carried that into your relationship. And that can happen with victims as well. They see it in households and within their friends, and they acknowledge that and think, oh, it's normal.
Right. And I don't know if you wanted to talk a little bit more about like destigmatizing like abuse that isn't always considered abuse or like recognized as abuse, like emotional abuse, mental abuse. Typically it's like, oh, if they're not hitting you, it's like it's like normal. Do you want to talk a little bit about like those types of situations?
So there's a couple of different types of abuse. There's psychological, which is, it can be them threatening you by them saying they're going to commit suicide if you leave them. They can threaten your family members, even your animals if you have any pets. And then there's emotional abuse, where they kind of convince you that you're not enough, or any of those kind of negative ideas. They kind of put them into your head. Anything that makes you feel particularly small, when they're intending to make you feel small, I believe that that's a form of abuse.
And well, you're particularly focusing on like young people, teenagers. Do you think that there's anything that like a school should do or could do to kind of raise awareness and like kind of offer support for students who are going through these things?
I think that counselors have to be more trained in a way. I'm sure they're trained to deal with these type of problems, but I feel that sometimes they can be a little bit pushy, when they should, in this case, be there to listen to the victim, not to kind of, how do I put this?
Like brush the situation under the rug in some way?
Yeah, but more like really try to get to the bottom of it. I think they should let the victim speak first, because otherwise I think that they can scare them away.
Okay, yeah. And would you say that there's anything that like the community as a whole should do or could do to kind of make it feel like a safer place for victims to come forward and like share their stories, especially being so young?
So I think that in our culture, in Mexican culture, machismo is a really big thing. And I think that kind of ties into abuse, because some people are like, oh, that's not abuse, that's just the way he is. That's just the way he was taught to grow up, or like that kind of situation. I think that we need to be more considerate for victims as a community. I feel that victims are often pushed away or excluded after someone finds out about their situation. And I think that that's the last thing we should do, because it's a moment where the victim may feel very alone.
Yeah, and I think it's very important to keep this conversation open, and like, as you said, this is like an uncomfortable topic, and
Yeah, and I agree, like it's uncomfortable, you know, like nobody wants to have the conversation of like this person is abusing you. I feel like there's so much negative connotation to the word that it makes it like, oh, we can't talk about it. Oh, we can't bring it up. And things are allowed to be uncomfortable and also be talked about. And I think that it's great that you're here and that you're talking about this. And even I wanted to kind of expand on you mentioning there are so many different types of intimate partner violence, especially when it comes to teenagers. Like, it's so unique. And I wanted to ask you about your thoughts on like sometimes sexual violence that teenagers experience with their partners because the lines of consent are blurred and we aren't always taught how to maneuver those situations. So if you want to.
So here in Nogales, there isn't a sex ed program. And even if there were, I'm unsure if they would cover that specific area of consent. Because consent is a very big thing, especially at a time in our lives when we're kind of inexperienced in all of these aspects. I think that you may feel uncomfortable, you may want to say no, but it's all new to you, so you may think it's normal. And from there, you might just be like, well, how do I say no? How do I stop this? And how do I tell him it makes me, or her, it makes me uncomfortable?
Yeah. Would you encourage, consent classes or courses for all like public high schools to have like programs to teach us these things?
I would. I do think that it should be incorporated into sex ed because I do think sex ed is important. Yeah.
That's awesome. I think I also wanted to touch a little bit on your conversations with your aunt, because that's awesome. You got to talk to like an actual professional who's studied these things. And was there anything that you guys talked about that like stood out to you, that like stuck into your brain, that you were just like, wow, that's so interesting, like that's such an interesting perspective, or that's such interesting information?
She talked about how some victims, well, I've seen this a lot, especially in movies and books, how they're sometimes they're like, oh, but it's just right now. He's in a bad mood. He has a good side, and you just haven't seen that side of him. I think that while someone may have a good side, they're hurting you, and it may seem normal to you, but like I said, anything that makes you feel little, or even not just little, if it's physical abuse, there is not a good side worth your life.
That's an amazing point, actually. And I think especially like when it happens when you're young, when it's like as a teenager, a lot of the time it's like your first relationship or like your first experience with people in this way. And we can be very naive sometimes in thinking that like, well, they would never take it that far. Or they would never hurt me that badly. But it's like, I feel like it's important to believe people when they show you who they are. And I think this is also an important conversation about boundaries, where like if you allow someone to do something once, they're gonna think that they can do it again. If you want to expand on that and your opinions on that, you can.
All I have to add is how far are you going to let them go? Because if you see a sign and you're like, oh, I could have just been making it up. So how many times is it going to take of you saying, I could have just been making that up, for you to finally realize that it's hurting you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's so important. And I think that's why it's so important to have these conversations, because a lot of the times people don't even realize, maybe they're lying to themselves, or maybe they just truly like don't realize that they are allowing themselves to stay in a situation that is seriously dangerous for them. Like a small push or like a nudge can turn into a hit, and it just escalates. And so like you can love someone and not allow them to risk your life. Like that should never be even a thought. So I think that's so important.
I just wanted to add, if anyone out there, like there's help available. The National Domestic Violence Hotline is 800-799-7233. So like if you personally are struggling or know someone that's struggling, like it's important that you go out and like help out how you can or
Yeah.
make that phone call.
Yeah, I think it's so important that people know that there are resources.
Yeah.
And people do care, and there are people who will help. If you want to add more about like that, if there's any specific resources that you know of.
I just think it's very important to talk to your close ones. Your someone you trust, someone that you can confide in, because at the end of the day, you have to be willing to open up completely. This isn't a topic that you can just talk about a little, and that's as much as you're going to give them. It can be embarrassing for the victim, but it's important to talk about it.
Yeah, and even that, like, if someone comes to you, maybe you're not the person experiencing intimate partner violence, but someone comes to you. Maybe watching this, you can have the mindset of like, if that happens, I'm gonna be open. I'm gonna let them have a space with me to be able to talk about it and have support. Because I think that's like the biggest thing for victims being so young, and maybe they don't think it's serious, so they just don't say anything. But it's not stupid and it's not dumb, and you do deserve like a place to feel safe and to talk about it.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you wanted to add?
Yes. So the reason that I believe that it is such an uncomfortable topic is because of censorship. We see those like certain words that are censored on our media, such as TikTok. TikTok has recently become less censored, but for a while was extremely censored. Words such as abuse, rape, even like depression, all of those words have been at one point censored. And I think that the fact that they're censored makes them feel horrid when they can be so normal.
Yeah, I think that's another, like, we could go into that because, like, social media, I think, impacts these situations in two ways. We talked about the romanticization of abuse and abusive relationships in
Yeah.
media, and it also creates like a stigma, and it perpetuates an idea that abuse is like embarrassing, or having like mental health issues is embarrassing, or like just being abused, even like the word rape being censored. Those things aren't things to be embarrassed about. You know, they're things that happen, and they're terrible.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be able to talk about them, because when we don't talk about them, we don't progress in those spaces. So I think that's like an amazing point. And is there anything that, if someone watching is like struggling in an abusive relationship and is like one of our peers maybe, anything that you would want them to know or want to tell them, or any piece of advice that you would give?
I think I would do some reflecting, and I mean this in the nicest way possible, but do you want to live a life where you're under someone else's emotional control, or even physical control, even monetary control? Like, do you want to live a life in fear and knowing that you could have much more if you were to leave? And also, are you going to, how far are you willing to or going to let this continue on?
Yeah, that's good advice. And I did also want to ask a little bit about where you, like, any places, specific sources that you kind of got your information, and if you found that there was a lot of information or very little.
I found that there was plenty of information on abuse as an entire concept, but there was more limited information on teen violence in specific. Sorry.
I was gonna say, is there any reason that you personally think that may be the case?
Yes, I think, and I don't know if it's that adults begin to forget what it was to be a teenager, or if it's now with social media that we've become so different to their version of a teenager that they can't relate to us. Mm-hmm. But I think that they may kind of lessen the extent of which we feel things, of which we experience. And I think that maybe that's why they don't think that it can happen to teenagers as well, because I feel like they think that it's such an adult problem.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. And we were talking a little bit before the episode about the proportion of cases, and you said it was something like almost 90,000 cases in 2021. And this was unbeknownst to me. Like, I did not know that there were so many cases, and that's just cases that are reported.
Yeah.
Of teen violence, and I just thought that was crazy, and I think again, that's why it's so important that we have these conversations and are aware that it's happening, mm-hmm. so that we can stop it from happening.
Mm-hmm. It's very important to kind of acknowledge the signs, because it may start off as a simple, I don't like that you're friends with him or her, to completely isolating you from your friend group or your family.
Yeah. And speaking of signs, are there any that you can think of off the top of your head that you would say, if you're experiencing this, if this is happening in your relationship, it could be a sign of like abuse for the future? Do you have any?
So I think isolation is a big one. If they kind of take control of that kind of goes into isolation, your social life. If they kind of give you any consequences for your behavior that they don't particularly like, and how severe those are. Maybe they don't talk to you for a day, maybe for a week. That's usually how it starts off. It's something small, and you think maybe they're just being petty. But then it could maybe the person is aggressive in general, and that's also important to take into consideration.
Mm-hmm. So watch out,
Mm-hmm.
make sure that you're vigilant when in relationships.
Yeah, be emotionally mature and intelligent.
Yeah, use your brain.
Cut you off.
Do you have something to add?
No.
Okay. Any final words that you want to say to anyone watching right now, or any type of advice, both to family members of people who are in these situations, or people in their. I mean, you kind of gave that advice too, but just any general final words.
Honestly, if you think you're experiencing abuse in any form, reach out. You can reach out to your counselors, you can reach out to family members. If you're not comfortable with that, you can reach out to your friends, or even me. I'm willing to talk about it. I'm open to it if you need someone to talk to. Or even Mariposa, they have some great therapists there. They offer some great help.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mia, for coming on and talking to us about this, and
Thank you.
And spreading awareness. And happy Teen Violence Awareness Month. What? So I think With that, we'll say bye. Thank you so much for watching.
Thank you for watching.
Bye.